Welcome to the State of the Market for Law Firm Sales in 7 minutes. My name is Jeremy Poock, and I lead Senior Attorney Match. Today we're being joined by Chris Dreyer of Rankings, who's going to discuss with us the digital opportunities that selling personal injury law firms present to buyers as part of our thought leadership series on personal injury law, looking towards 2023 and beyond. So I'm excited to introduce Chris Dreyer of Rankings. Chris, thanks for joining.
Jeremy, thank you so much for having me.
So Chris, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, a little background, and the new book that you've published, please.
Thank you, Jeremy. I am the CEO and founder of Rankings.io. We help personal injury attorneys with their marketing. I've been in the business for working with legal for over 15 years. I also wrote the book, Niching Up. It's over my shoulder here. The narrower the market, the bigger the prize, talking about the advantages and disadvantages of niching. And fortunately, I host a personal injury podcast where I get to speak to the top personal injury attorneys in the nation every single week. And I love the topic that we're touching on. It's something that's not discussed enough because these attorneys are setting with a real asset that they can use. Every conversation is a conversation based upon trust, particularly when it comes to sales. And brand is trust, experience, case results, testimonials. They can't be quantified or are very difficult to quantify. The other thing is the advantage that they have is maybe they already rank in the search engines for a particular phrase. So you can gain confidence that you can already rank when you acquire this firm. Instead of creating a new article and hoping and praying that it ranks in the search engines, imagine just acquiring. Google has changed. Back in the day, several years ago, it's a library, it's a repository where they're looking for new content to cover topics on a broad range of legal categories. But now, today, there's trillions of web pages and most topics, not all, have already been covered. So it's not a case where you create an article and hope and it doesn't exist and you automatically rank. It's very challenging. So these senior firms, they have a real asset because they have distribution, they have leverage through reviews, directories, citations, social media, their awards, everything that goes into it, even the jingles and the vanity phone numbers that makes them more memorable, and all of that builds over time.
Great. So Chris, that's a great transition to what we call the MVP awards that attorneys who have practiced more than 30 years, what they've achieved over the course of their careers. And personal injury lawyers are often right in the middle of these three awards. That is, they've achieved awards in subject matter knowledge. Let's say that PI attorney that's focused on traumatic brain injuries or does med mal. They know the subject matter cold. They've developed goodwill in their communities, sometimes regionally and even nationally. And they're great at client development. And we want to talk to you more about is this potential award. What we're seeing post 2020 is that pivot. And we've gone beyond the pivot digitally. We are in the middle of what we call the 3.0 digital era for attorneys. And when it comes to senior attorneys and senior attorney-led firms, can you talk about what's that potential to make their digital content even stronger when legacy PI firms, when they join growing PI firms?
The biggest thing that I think of immediately are those editorials that they have acquired through their experience and reputation. If you've acquired media presence on some of the big sites or listed in Wall Street Journal or US Today, those are barrier of entry for new attorneys. You don't just get listed in these major editorials. And when it comes to a vote and the strength of that vote or endorsement in regards to a link to help you in your search engine presence, those are like gold. It's very easy to use a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush to go evaluate a competitor's link profile and try to duplicate it. But some of those, based upon reputation, are very challenging to replicate. And it's a huge advantage that they can bring to the new firm to help their search engine presence. Not only that, their reputation on social and all these other assets. It's leverage, it's distribution. That's what we're looking at.
So to pick up on leverage and distribution, and you lead the Personal Injury Mastermind podcast, right? What's the opportunity for that senior attorney, someone that people in the community have gotten to know over the course of decades? What kind of opportunities are there for that attorney who's in his or her MVP years? They're in their late 50s, 60s, and into their 70s, for publishing podcasts, doing vlogs, making YouTube videos. They know the subject matter again so well. What kind of opportunity do you see for that senior attorney who's typically just behind the desk managing an office? If they join a practice and they have time on their hands, what would you advise the firm, the buying firm that takes on a legacy PI firm with these amazing personal injury law attorneys with tremendous trial attorney experience? What's your digital vision when they join a firm like that, Chris?
Well, when you run a podcast or you're giving away information, that's the key to marketing, is giving away value. It's a value exchange for attention. And there's a couple advantages that these senior attorneys have. First, they've developed relationships over years. So if they were to hypothetically start a podcast, they have relationships they can automatically invite and have as guests to have tremendous value, where it may be more challenging to get your foot in the door to some of these other high profile attorneys if you're not a known quantity. But if you are a known quantity yourself, it's a way to create value and build these relationships and share this education in a manner that others just simply cannot do. The other thing is, you have this inherent expertise. You've got Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. So the subject matter is actually going to be better. And because you can go deeper, you've lived it, you breathed it, and just the information itself is going to be better. And that's what Google's looking for. Google is looking for information that's different, and it provides value to the consumers.
Great. And if we can go back to that infographic again, what we see in the marketplace when it comes to the digital opportunities for selling PI firms, I agree with you completely that 10,000 hours of that subject matter knowledge that so often, Chris, senior attorneys, they're just oozing with the energy to share it. And they often share it with the client across the table with them. But in the digital world, they can be sharing it. They can be sharing it digitally via social media. There's all kinds of ways that their grandchildren, nieces, nephews are saying, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. But maybe in conclusion, Chris, if you could just share with us again, like if they join one of the firms that rankings advises, right, that you're working with, and if they take on one of these legacy senior attorneys, how to deploy that underutilized asset.
Deploying it is basically speaking to from experience. It's documenting, not creating. One of the biggest challenges when you're creating content on any platform are what are the topics that you're going to speak to. And if you have to research and try to determine what that information is, as opposed to documenting from your own personal experiences and speaking from this is what worked for me, as opposed to telling someone what they should do, it holds so much more value, because no one likes being told what to do. Hey, go mow the grass, right? Versus, it looks like the grass needs to be mowed. It'd probably be a good idea. And, it's a different dynamic. It's a dynamic of trust and value.
Terrific. So Chris Dreyer from Rankings, thank you so much for joining us. Just in conclusion, the digital opportunities that senior attorney PI firms are sitting on are just huge. And they're often underutilizing that value. And by joining a growing law firm in 2023 and beyond, firms that are adopting the types of digital resources that Rankings provides to its growing PI clients offers tremendous opportunities to both the senior attorney PI firm and particularly the growing firm that could really utilize that subject matter knowledge and the authenticity and the reputation that those attorneys and those firms have developed often over the course of decades, if not a generation. So Chris, thanks again so much for joining. And that is our thought leadership series for the state of the market for law firm sales in a little bit more than 7 minutes.
Thank you, Jeremy.